Alright, this is domain and range practice with graphs. We're going to use set notation and interval notation, and I have 14 graphs. So we can get started with something that looks like this. So of course when I'm drawing this I can't draw with a ruler, but this is supposed to be a straight line here. And we're going to do the domain first. So the first thing I want to notice is domain goes from left to right. So we're starting here, which is -4, and then it continues on and on and on here. So if I use interval notation, I'm starting at -4 and I'm going to infinity, because this never stops. This goes on and on. So this is your infinity here. So that's your domain. Now that is, if you want to use set notation, you would say that x is greater than -4. And of course we're in 2 dimensions now because we have a x and a y. Right? So that's your domain values. Your range is, you're going from down to up. So if we look down here, this is going negative infinity. So negative infinity is here. When you look on a graph, it's on the x, it's infinity here and then negative infinity here. Y is up here is infinity and this is negative infinity. So since the values can go to negative infinity, we're going from negative infinity and we're going all the way up to whatever that is, because that's the value here. This value here is -4. What is 1, 2, 3, 4, 7? I hope that's 7. Okay, 7. Since the open interval, use open interval and for your interval notation. Set notation, and remember we're talking about the range, so we do y. So you're doing y is less than 7. Okay, and if you your teacher gets real specific, the way you should write this is set notation. Y, let me erase this. Y belongs, is included in, that's a C. This is inclusion sign, C with the E. All real numbers such that, I'm going to draw a long line, y is less than 7. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line through that, and then you close it up as a set. For this one, the x, the domain, you would say x belongs to all reals such that x is bigger than -4 or greater than. Alright? So these two go together, and I don't know, your teacher will make you get more specific and write it the proper way. That would be the proper way. Okay, we're going to go a little faster on the other ones. Alright, here we have one. We're going to do domain. So we're going from left to right for domain. And this is your x-axis, and this is your y. So we're starting at negative, I'm going to put the domain up here, negative infinity to, what is this value here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. X is 5. So to 5. And it can equal 5, so because this is a closed circle. So that is your interval notation. And for set notation, you would say x belongs, write a C with a line, all reals, 2 lines with the R, that's called blackboard R, such that x is less than or equal to 5. Because it can equal 5 here. And that just means here, all the values, if you plotted any points on here as an ordered pair, they would all be less than or equal to 5. Okay, so your range, we're going from down to up, so we're going to negative infinity to infinity here. But we're starting at what? 1, 2, This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's negative 6. So we're starting at negative 6. That's where our y is, this point here. And it can equal negative 6, so use closed brackets. And then we go all the way up here, and it can go on and on and on, because this arrow goes on and on. So to infinity. It can never equal infinity, so you do open interval. For set notation, that would be y belongs to reals, all reals, such that y is bigger than or equal to or greater than or equal to negative 6. So any values here, if you did ordered pair on this line, all the numbers would be greater than negative 6. So negative 5, negative 4, and so forth. All right. Next one, we have some contraption here. And this we're doing. Let me label this here. So we're in this area here. If you wanted to, you could actually make a box on this one. And this kind of helps get your area. So for domain, we're going from left to right, and we're starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Negative 7 is here. This is 1. So we're going, since it can't equal it, it's negative 7 to 1. And the way you would write it is set notation is x belongs to all reals such that, or however, this is like the restriction is that x must be in between negative 7 and 1. Again, and it can't equal it because we have the open circles here. Again, you have to include all the decimal amounts on here, so that's why you write it that way. For the domain, the range, we're going from down to top, bottom up. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 6 to 1, 2, 3, is that 4? 3, 4, 4. Can equal it, and then you do the same thing. Y is all real numbers, but the restriction is excuse me, y has to be in between negative 6 and 4. That's the proper way to write that. Okay, next one. We have this one. It's kind of the same thing, and I'm going to make this. It's really hard to draw on these, so, oops, sorry. Let me erase this. We're going to make this go all the way up to this up here. So that's our point. For the x, we're going in between here. Let me do it in red. In between here and here on the x, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5, and it can equal it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it can equal that. Or you would write x, we're in the real numbers, but the restriction is x is in between or equal to negative 5, including 5, negative 5 and 5. And you do the closed brackets. The range, we'll go bottom up. We're starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4. And we're going to 3. And again, you're going to write y belongs to the reals. But our restriction is that y is in between negative and 4, negative 4 and 3, including, we can include the negative 4, and this should be a little curly line. I call it little curly lines. This one, domain, x is in between here. So, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, it can't equal negative 7 because it's open, but it can equal 4. So, you close it up. The other notation would be x. We're dealing with the real numbers, and the restriction is x is in between negative 7 and 4, including the 4, but not the negative 7. That's why we have the equals there. Now the range, we just have one line here. So the range is just y is -3. So y can equal -3. Okay, that's how you write it. I don't really like that. I would rather write it this way. Y belongs to the reals. And the restriction, or you can say however, y equals -3. Okay? And this one's kind of the same thing. X is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So X is just 6, which doesn't look too great. So I would rather write it this way. X belongs to the reals. And why did I put Y? And X equals 6. For the range, we're going from down to the bottom to up, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. -6 to 3. It can equal 3 because that's closed, but it can't equal -6. And you would write y is included in the reals such that y is in between -6 and 3. It can equal 3, and then you put the little curly braces there. Alright, this one, domain. So we're going from left to right. Since this continues on and on, our domain is -infinity to infinity. And for your set notation, this is getting really complicated here, but you say x belongs to the reals, and that's all you have to say. And a lot of times your teacher will just let you write that. For the domain, we're starting, since we're going from -infinity to infinity, but here we're starting at 3. So basically we're saying we're starting at 3, it can equal 3. So use the bracket, a closed interval, and then it goes on up to infinity. And set notation, you write y belongs to the reals such that, or you could say however, y is bigger than or equal to 3. Because you'll have no y values below 3 here. All our points on the y would be bigger than 3. Okay, and this one, I'm going to go a little faster here. Our x is starting at -3, so that's going to be -3 to infinity. X is part of the real numbers, but x has to be bigger than, it can equal to -3. The range, we're starting here, so it's 0. So we're going from 0 to infinity. And y belongs to the reals. However, y must be bigger than or equal to 0. Okay? Okay. Now this one, we've got, we're going from -infinity to infinity on the x, and on the y, -infinity to infinity here. So for domain, we're starting from -infinity, and we're going to that, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -6. And let me scoot this over. So -infinity to -6. Plus, we're going to combine it, unite it. This actually means or. Or we're starting at 3 to infinity. So it can equal 3 to infinity. Alright? Now, this one's better to write in interval notation. Set notation, you would kind of say the same thing. You would say x belongs to the reals, but x is less than -6, or x is, let me erase that, or x is greater than or equal to 3. So, I don't know which one you like better, but these are more complicated. Now, on the range, we're doing the y, so we're going down to up. Negative infinity, excuse me, to 2 unites, or, and then we're skipping, there's a big jump here. We're going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 to infinity. Okay? And then you'd kind of do the same thing you would for the interval notation, or the set notation. Here's another one. Domain is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -5 to -1. And I'll leave you do the, basically it's just saying x is in between -1 and -5. And we're starting at -2 for the range. It can equal -2. This is closed here. So we can have a point here. In fact, this point is what? -3, -2. That's that ordered pair right there. And this kind, going from left to right, so we have, this is our width, so to speak. We're going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, -7 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hope I did that right. To 8. Open circled here. So I use the parentheses, closed here. And then for y, we're starting at 1, 2, 3, -6. It can equal it because there's no open there. So -6. And we're going all the way to 3. Of course, you can just write this as x is in between -7 and 8. And I'll let you fill the rest in. And then here, y is in between -6 and in between -6 and 3. Okay. This one is the same type thing. We're in between -4 and 4. And y starts at 0 and goes to, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hey, counting to 6. Or y is in between 0 and 6. Alright. And this one, is this the last one? We got 2 more. Now this one is basically, it's not stopping, it's continuous. So if you're going from -infinity to infinity for your domain, and for the range, it's the same thing. -infinity to infinity. So basically, for you could just say x belongs to all reals, and for the range, y belongs to all reals. That would be your set notation. And this last one, it's kind of split here, so we're going to do domain first. -infinity, and it goes to 0 without. So -infinity to 0, Then it jumps. It doesn't ever hit 0, so we unite it with 0 to infinity. And for the range, we're going from do the same thing, negative infinity to 0 unites with 0 to infinity. Now, in all these, sometimes I went kind of fast because this is a long video, but you need to look at these and keep looking at them until it gets more in your brain. That way you can have good math intuition about domain and range. You will use these a lot in pre-calculus and calculus. So domain and range is very important. And that is all.